Big Footy Port Adelaide podcast is proudly sponsored by New Vision.
My team, kinda power. I love the power. I love the power. I love the power.
G'day everyone, Macca 19 here, and this is the Big Footy Port Adelaide podcast, coming to you live once again on Port Fan Radio. Look, tonight we've got two guests because Rick's having some time off. His work's taken control and he's no longer able to find a couple of hours to do this. So we've got a couple of guests this evening. The first is Ford Fairlane. How are you, mate?
I'm well, yourself?
Good, buddy. Good to have you back on.
Good to be back.
That's the way. And the next is Forza.
How are you, mate?
Mate, very good. The mod squad. We're here.
Who's guarding the board?
Hopefully Rick. Oh dear. Alrighty, let's get straight into it and talk about our love and hate, if we can find a love, that is, I guess. Ford, do you want to start us off with this one?
I guess I've been on the bandwagon for a little while now. I'll go with Billy Frampton, the young drafted ruckman from Western Australia, is playing in the SANFL at the moment. Really enjoying what I'm hearing about him, and from what I've seen him play, exciting player, tall, athletic, and more than a healthy dose of white line fever, which I think all Port supporters appreciate. So really enjoying what he's been bringing to the field, and his ability to play as a good quality ruckman at 19 or whatever he is in the SANFL in his first year. I mean, we've cycled through a lot of ruckmen through our rookie lists and with late picks, as you know, and most of them have been about under 19 standard in their first year, and many haven't progressed beyond that. I noticed Mitch Curnow playing for North Adelaide on the weekend. I assume it's the same Mitch Curnow that was from Sturt, was on our list for a little while.
I think so.
It's been years later that he suddenly bobbed up and looks, well, he played pretty well from all accounts, kicked 3 goals on the weekend. But to have a young guy come in and really assert himself and be really strong and aggressive at the ball is just terrific.
That's it. Have to agree there. He's had a good start to his career, and maybe he might get more of a go at AFL level sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think he's surprised a few. I think a young ruckman, you usually say park him for 3 years and see how you go, but he's really grabbed the bull by the horns, if you like, and announced his arrival.
Absolutely. Forza, do you have a love?
Oh, it's hard. It's hard to have a love after the weekend. It's obviously nothing at AFL level, so I'm going to have to follow Ford's lead and go to the SANFL. And my one love would have to be the performance of Angus Monfries. Here we have a guy who's not had the best of years. I thought he's been rather serviceable as a defensive forward, but he had a fairly shocking game where he was subbed out and dropped, and he had the exact right attitude back in the SANFL. He had a week off, he comes in, 26 disposals, 4 goals, screams, select me, put me back in the AFL, it's where I belong. So that would have to be the love. And I actually have a second love as well, which I don't know how long this has been happening for, but I've noticed that our president, David Koch, has stopped with his SMSing of opposition teams when they embarrass us. So I love the fact that he's finally shut up about that.
That's a very good love. I do like and enjoy that as well. Maybe we'll go back to telling him to get stuffed.
Well, I get the feeling that that Tribe's thread there might have actually hit a nerve or two at the club, and there might have been some discussions had about how the senior leadership should behave and be viewed to the public. So I think there's been something happening in terms of the messages coming from the very top, which is it's good to see. It's good to see.
It is.
How about you,
There's a limit to humility.
It is.
That's right. Look, my love is Tommy Cleary. I thought he had his career best game on the weekend, and in a game where we were just completely bombarded in the defensive 50 time after time, and our midfield didn't give a yelp, and Jackie Homsch had an absolute horror game, and here's this kid in his 6th or 7th game, Tommy Cleary, and just had a fantastic effort out there, and he kept Cramery dead quiet in the first half. I think he only had 4 touches. Went on to the very dangerous Stringer, who was best on ground at half time, and kept him to just 4 touches after half time as well. So, for a defender to be, in my opinion, best on ground in a game like that was an absolutely marvellous effort.
Yeah, very impressive. He's got a touch of the Marty Leslie's about him, I reckon. He's those big shoulders, number 17, socks down, no frills footy. He's strong overhead and does all the right things, reads the ball coming in well, and he's just going to get better and better.
Absolutely.
He's also our best depth player in terms of the next one that comes in if we lose a key defender. Out of all the areas on the field, he'd be probably the absolute best. It gives us, it makes me confident that if Trengo, Bacala or Homsch miss with injury or get suspended, that Cleary can plug straight in and he can do a job.
Yeah, he's been impressive all year, but this is certainly the standout moment in his breakout game, and hopefully he can continue to grow from this, and he should probably get a chance to play the rest of the year, and we'll see how he goes next year. But he's had a really good grounding in the SANFL. He's played really good football there for the last 2 years, and it's great to see him take his chance when it's come along.
Yeah, definitely.
On to our hate, which obviously could take a fairly long time, I guess. Ford, do you want to start us off with this one?
Probably, as you said, there's a few to choose from. I'm pretty much over some of the unseemly, if you like, goings on around commentary on what Jay Schultz is going to do. I mean, he's not come out and said I'm leaving. It's been media commentary driven the whole way. Schultz is going to do this, Freo this, and he hasn't been offered enough, and he's going to quit, and let the guy sort out his contract and get it done. I mean, even when you've got Tony Shaw coming out and making comment about it, and it's really not necessary. He gives 110% every week. He gives his all. He's a true warrior of the game, and I really hope he stays and plays out his career at Port. I think that really bugged me. I think this morning was a writer in the paper sphere, shall we say, having his commentary on how apparently every Port supporter wants to see Schultz gone. Loyalty in football is dead, and we're all saying get on your bike and get on your way. Well, that's not true. It's just a nonsense. I mean, everyone understands the reality of modern football and players move on. But if there was one bloke you want staying at your club to the end of his career, it's Jay Schultz. And I really, the thing I hate is just some of that 24/7 football news cycle driven commentary about what he's going to do. I think just let him make a decision and go with it whichever way he goes.
Absolutely.
Couldn't agree more.
It
is as I said on the forum, I'm pretty shattered at the thought of Jay Schultz actually not finishing his career at Port Adelaide, because he's been such a warrior, such a great player for our footy club. He came to us from Richmond, where he didn't really have the best start to his career, and he's just made every post a winner at Port Adelaide, and all the supporters love him. Everyone at the club loves him, and you just hope that he is able to sign a contract which he's comfortable with and the club's comfortable with, and he can finish his career here.
You'd like to think that at the end of the day, if what it comes down to is both give a bit of ground, and that's what usually happens in football, that someone takes one position, someone takes another. There's always the managers in there stirring up the nest a bit and going, well, this club's interested in him. And at the end of the day, each will say, well, I took a bit less. And the club will say, well, we offered a bit more, and now everyone's happy. And so everyone walks away a winner, and he stays, which is what he should be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Forza, what about you, mate?
My hate. I think my hate would just have to be how we absolutely just gave up on the weekend.
Yeah.
It's, seeing your captain absolutely try his guts out and then be set upon by 3 or 4 players every time he goes near it. That's just not on. Like, time and again in that game, we were outnumbered, something shocking. And it wasn't just at certain points of the game. After the first 10, 15 minutes, they just absolutely monstered us all over the ground. It's almost like they had 2 or 3 extra players on the park, and you know that's not true, and you know that we're more than capable of matching that with our work rate, but it just wasn't there on the weekend, and that for me is, it has to be the biggest hate, absolutely.
Yeah. No, we were absolutely monstered. I think we had, 130 less disposals, 20 less contested possessions, 15 less inside 50s, and almost 20 more clangers, so... Yeah, it certainly wasn't our best performance, and probably the worst performance under Hinckley in the era.
Easily, it's shades of 2012, 2011 with that sort of game, and you know we wouldn't have beaten anyone had we played anyone else in reality. And if we played Essendon this week, we probably would have lost that game.
Yeah,
I think that's certainly what prompted the press conference from Ken after. He certainly seemed to be really disillusioned with what they served up, and you know, as far as Ken gets, he was pretty angry about it, because he certainly, while he doesn't name names, and you wouldn't expect a coach to come out and name individuals, and that's just destructive. But he really made the point about the failure as a team, because he's very much team first, and we just didn't do the team things, and too many guys playing, as he said, you know, guys out of form trying to play for themselves, and not doing the team thing instead. And I think part of that is, as you said, Forza, was about Boak being beset all the time, and nobody's running in and putting a block on or shepherding or just creating some space and just spreading. It's always spreading, you know, get me the ball, and it's really, you could see it really got to him. I think he was really upset about the way we went about it, and I think it was the first time he's come away from a game, as he said, that, you know, he wasn't proud of the effort they put in.
Absolutely. Oh, sorry, Macca. I just wanted to make the point that Hinckley, you know, the statement's been made that the club made a big effort to keep the group together for 2015 after the success of 2014. And, you know, the way I interpret that is some players who would have otherwise been moved on were kept, and the real candidate player there, I think, is Paul Stewart. You know, he got a 2-year contract. He's loved around the club. He's one of the favourite boys there, and they kept him on to keep that sort of camaraderie there. And the players, in a sense, they haven't repaid that faith. And yeah, you can definitely hear it in Hinckley's voice that he's been bitterly disappointed with how the year's panned out from that respect.
Yeah, no, that's a good comment. That's a very good comment. The loss reminded me a lot of a couple of losses to Carlton back in the late part of last decade, where, you know, it was sort of late in the year, and we were sort of just hanging on to finals by the grit of our teeth, and you know, we ended up going over to Etihad Stadium and getting absolutely pummeled by Carlton a couple of times, and you know, it just had that sort of feel about it, where you just ended up going, that was just absolutely crap.
Yeah,
absolutely. And a game, I think there was a game here as well, as I recall, back at the old days at Footy Park, where they did something similar to us as well. Probably 2 years in a row, those games where we'd get out to a good lead and then just get reeled in and fall apart. Yeah.
No, that's right. Look, my hate this week is the regression of Jack Hompsch since Bobby Carlyle's been out of the side. And you know, he just hasn't been able to adapt his game to being the number one key defender, which is pretty disappointing. And we all know he's at his best when he can sort of zone off and drop in front and take those intercept marks that we all love as a third man. But you know, I feel he's still sort of zoning off too far, and there isn't another Jack Hompsch in the side to perform his previous role in the team at the moment. So, you know, in the last 7 weeks, he's had obviously great games against Travis Cloke and Josh Bruce, beat them convincingly, but he's also been well beaten, absolutely pants by Lockie Henderson, Sam Reid, Taylor Walker, Cale Hooker, and now Jake Stringer in a half of football had 3.5 goals kicked on him. So, you know, I think he's absolutely got to improve that next year because Carlisle's body isn't the most reliable thing out there, and if we're going to rely on Jack Hompsch to be the number one key defender, he's got to learn how to tighten up on some of these players.
Yeah, spot on, I reckon.
Certainly, as I said, it really shows the importance of Carlisle as that the big, strong defender and a bit of a general back there as well, and picking up that main forward.
Well, yeah, you really get an appreciation for how valuable Carlisle is, particularly if you look at how many points we've conceded in the past, 6-7 weeks compared to at the start of the year when Carlisle was in the team. And now, of course, that you factor in the midfield's ability to run two ways and whatnot, but the defensive unit has certainly not performed as well with Carlisle out the team, and Hompsch is a bit of a culprit, bit of a victim there because he's been asked to play a different role, and I guess he's just not suited to it just yet.
It really sort of makes you appreciate the team within a team aspect, doesn't it? And it reminds me of I had a chat with Mission Possible once, and we were talking about Siri Rakawaza, and he was saying Rakawaza's fine, but he really relies a lot on Corey Beard in the back pocket coming and helping cover for him. And I think there was a game, might have been against Sturt, when Josh Jenkins was still aligned with them, and Beard was out, and I think Jenkins kicked 8 goals on Rakawaza, and he just looked all at sea. There was no one coming across, no one over the top, any long ball in. It was just one out all the time. And I think they get used to playing their particular roles within that defensive unit, and suddenly when a key plank is pulled out of it, it really has unbalanced it. It's almost like you've got 3 second or third defenders there with Clury and Hompsch and Trengove, and not a genuine number one defender.
Yeah,
well, it's really
we've given up 100 points in 4 of the last 7 games without Carlisle, and I think we only did it twice in the first 11. So quite a big difference there, I think.
Mm.
I guess it's also a learning thing for Clury as well, because with him in the team, he probably needs to do that chop out that Hompsch was doing earlier in the year, and I think he does it a few times. Like, he's taken some really nice intercept marks, and he's done some very good defensive efforts and kept his direct opponent virtually scoreless, especially on the weekend against in a 10-goal loss. But I guess it's a matter of helping out Hompsch, and that's probably where Hompsch is being exposed a bit as well, as he doesn't have the same sort of support that he was giving Carlisle and whatnot.
That's it. Well, let's go on to our review. And as we know, Port played the Dogs at Etihad Stadium on Saturday, and we're left with arguably the worst defeat in the Hinckley era. We lost by 64 points, 9 goals 10 to 19 goals 14. Chatty Wingard and Jay Schultz were the only multiple goal scorers with 2 each. I'd like to start talking about the first 15 minutes, because normally in losses like this, we always say on the forum, you can tell in the first 5 minutes how it's going to pan out, and you know straight away that we're going to lose. But this didn't play out like that at all. That first 15 minutes was, outside of the first quarter against Hawthorn, probably the best footy we've played all year. We were aggressive, we were confident, really fast, skillful. We took the game on. It was great transition footy. We looked absolutely switched on and ready to rumble. And what a pity it only lasted 15 minutes.
Yeah, I was watching it and just thought, beauty, we're on today. We've come to play, or whatever the terminology is, and just thought this is going to be a beauty. And then kicked those 3 goals, and Hoff kicked that one out on the full, and it just seemed to turn a switch off. It just vanished. Everything just vanished from that point. The Dogs just took control.
Yeah. You can't blame Hoff for that.
Being
the turning point. And I know you're not doing it, but it was actually the turning point of the game. Like, the game completely changed after that moment.
It was bizarre. It was like he flicked an off switch somewhere, and everything stopped. The machinery just ground to a halt.
Yeah.
And even then, I mean, they got a couple of goals where there was a spillage out of the back and a ruckman ran onto it. St Kilda did something similar the week before. They got a goal against us where they all went up, and Hickey, the big ruckman, ran up at the back of it and ran off with the footy and opened it up. And you just said, well, they're really only kicking goals through a couple of lucky bounces. But then it just kept happening, and it got to the point where you couldn't even. It's a bit like the old saying about a batsman being out of form in cricket. They nick the first ball every time. You can't tell if you're out of form because you're not actually getting to play any shots, and you couldn't tell if we were out of form because we couldn't get our hands on the ball. But then when we did, we just kept turning it over, and it just got progressively worse from there.
Would be interesting to see a bit of a sliding doors moment and see what would have actually happened had he kicked that goal and we did go 4 goals up, and I don't know, maybe we would have lost by 58 points instead of 64, but I don't know, maybe the game might have changed a little bit, and more and more pressure got put on the Dogs, and unfortunately it didn't turn out that way, and it really was the turning point of the game. The Dogs just sort of turned themselves on, and they started getting the ball out of the midfield with regularity, and our defenders were all at sea.
Well, absolutely. We it's almost like we were waiting. We're just waiting for the Bulldogs' pressure to let up, where we could just get back in. But it never really did. They were able to keep a phenomenal amount of pressure on us for the entire game, and they did it all over the ground. It wasn't really one area where we fell apart. They smashed us. We were smashed in the ruck. We were smashed in the middle. They outworked our defenders too easily, and the ball barely got to our forward line to really give our forwards much of an opportunity. And when it did, they were able to cut it off with relative ease in most cases, because we've been doing this all year. We do these blind kicks into 50, or we kick it where there's no one.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, okay, this must be part of the game plan. When it's working, there's meant to be a player there that's going to mark the ball. But there's no player there that's going to mark the ball, but we're still kicking it into that spot. So, where's the thought process there?
And often we'll just kick it to the wrong side of a player. There were a number of times we came down the wing and the flank and centred it. And you've got Schultz up there and Ryder and Westhoff, and yet they always seem to kick it just 5 metres too far to the wrong side. And really, occasionally Schultz would go for some improbable specky that he'd just give away a free kick, or Ryder would wind up just looking back at the guy and going, well, how am I going to mark that? Stick it over the other 5 metres the other side and I'm a chance. And it's a matter of degrees sometimes, but there were some really strange options and delivery of the ball in that game.
There were, and there was some really bad reactive plays as well. In the last, we got a fast break in the middle, kicked it forward, and Wingard, of all players, was a foot behind his opponent, who just marked the ball with ease. For Wingard, of all players, for Wingard to be outmarked like that on the break is just, something's wrong there, because he is not a reactive player at all, and he would have, 99 times out of 100, he would have gobbled that up and probably kicked the goal. But he was a foot behind and he was flat-footed.
No, that's right. I mean,
it
that's
was almost
second quarter.
They'd given up. And I think that was comes back why Ken Hinkley was so disappointed in the press conference. And I think there was I saw a report in The Age on the weekend about the game, and there was a sort of a whole page spread, and there's a big top parts all about the Bulldogs, how well they played, etc. And then underneath on the other hand, there was Port Adelaide, and one of the points they made was exactly what Ken said in the press conference, was when they turned up the heat, we melted, basically. He didn't say that in so many words, but that was what he meant, when he was saying, well, we can be tough on our own terms, but we can't seem to bring that when the other team turns the heat onto us. And by then, that flat-footed stuff, it's almost as if, oh, well, never mind, the game's shot anyway, and I'm not going to throw myself too hard at it. There just seems to be a psyche that comes over you in those games. As Ken said, one team was hoping to win and another team wanted to win.
Yeah.
I mean, that second quarter was just shocking footy, and it's not the first time we've seen a quarter like that this year, but it's probably the most drastic in terms of just how well it sort of finished the game. I mean, we've seen it maybe 6 or 7 times where we've just been absolutely spanked in a 20 to 30 minute period, where for whatever reason, we go from looking absolutely A grade. I mean, it happened against Hawthorn, happened against the Crows, happened against Sydney, where we look absolutely A grade, and then for 15 to 20 minutes, things just turn to absolute crap, and we look absolutely shot mentally. We can't get our hands on the footy. When we do actually get our hands on the footy, we turn it over almost immediately. Can't get it in the forward line, can't get it out of their defensive 50. You know, it's just the absolute worst of football, basically.
Yeah.
We have those rush kicks out of the defensive 50 arc that go straight to their men that they've set up the wall across between half-back and centre, and it comes straight back in again.
That happened about 5 times in about 6 minutes.
They're just waiting, and they know we're going to do it. It's like, how have we become so predictable so quickly? Where all they have to do is just sit back and say, "Yep, no worries. They'll kick it to us eventually."
We almost hope for the turnover. You know, if that happens, we're away. And Etihad, it just doesn't happen. They've got a side they've basically built to play there, and they're really good there. And I think even last week, if we'd played St Kilda at Etihad, I think it could have been a different result. You could see the way St Kilda were trying to play, and they just couldn't quite play off. You know, in under sunshine in weather. But in the sort of the hermetically sealed environment, it's a different style of game, and there's some teams there that have definitely built their sides to play really good footy there, and the Bulldogs are one, and they just brought that all to bear. It was similar, like I watched them beat the Crows there by 70 odd points earlier in the year, and it was pretty much the same deal that they just use that ground really well. They just hit target after target and know how to play there.
So what was the cause of that second quarter disaster? Was it the midfield? Because there was a lot of times, probably more than I've seen in a game of footy for a long time, where we just looked up and just looked like an absolute deer in headlights and got caught from behind with the ball. That must have happened about 6 or 7 times in that second quarter. So was it the midfield not knowing what to do? Was it a lack of forward movement? Was it the defence being too loose? Or was it just a bit part of all of those?
Bit of everything. It's hard to tell without being at the ground and seeing how it all unfolds in front of you. But I guess you just keep coming back to those words of Hinkley about, you know, a team that you know, hungry and aggressive and can see, you know, the prize at the end of the day, which was us last year and even the year before, and really taking it up to another team who's sort of put on the back foot a bit, doesn't quite know how to handle the pace and the pressure of the game. We seem to have slowed down this year in the way we play, as if we've either tried to add something different to our game plan or are just trying to find almost an easier way to play. At the start of the season, when they started to talk about, we're going to do more switching of the play because, you know, that'll open up this other side and give us a chance to set up loose men. And I'm thinking, gee, I heard all that under Primus. You know, we used to do that all the time. Switch back again, and wind up going nowhere. And you almost get into that sort of relaxed mindset, whereas you've got this other team that's like a swarm of bees and it's just going to keep going and going and going. And in the end, it's just, wow, you know, this is all a bit much. I don't know what to actually do here. And we seem to have lost that instinctive footy that we were playing last year and the year before.
Yeah, absolutely. It comes down to work rate. So what you're saying, Macca, for me, it's a little bit of everything. And just watching the Dogs, they were so hungry, and you know, they made us look really slow. It's like there's no way we're that slow a team. You know, it's just not possible. And to be, you know, constantly facing Bulldogs having a +1 or a +2 at the contest, you're never going to win those sort of contests. And that's what Hinkley was saying in his after game interview as well. If you don't work that hard, and they're capable of it, they're definitely capable of it, you know, we're going to lose.
Yeah.
If you're not switched on for every minute, you're no good. And that's right. And that's probably the best thing they said in that interview for mine, was you got to be switched on for the whole game. And we so weren't.
Now look, as well as some of their guns played, I mean, Stringer was arguably best on ground in the first half. He kicked 4 goals and just tore Jack Homsch to pieces. Bontempelli had a really good game. Matthew Boyd really controlled the half-back line. Tory Dixon, one of those underrated players that I mentioned in the preview, he kicked 3 goals. It was really some of their unheralded players which really dominated the game. I mean, Shane Biggs, who the hell's he? He got 27 touches. Sam Daly in his first game for the year got 21. Lockie Hunter got 31. And Jack Redpath, who I sort of made a bit of a quip about in the preview, that this is the sort of game where we'll see him have his breakout game and kick 4 goals. Well, he actually did kick 4 goals.
Yeah, shame on you. We're asking for trouble.
That's it.
Yeah,
Never heard of him before this week. Never heard of him.
No. The only, as I said in one of my posts, was the only Redpath I can remember is the Australian opening batsman. And he'd be about 70 now, so I figure it wasn't him. But geez, he made a bit of a mess of us. But yeah, as you said, the sort of, well, I guess, well, to someone like me anyway, there were quite a few little known players in there, and they were just chopping us up, as well as the better knowns. I mean, Stringer, of course, and Bontempelli did their damage, but as you said, there were quite a few blokes that not that well known who gave us a lot of hurt.
Yep. So look, let's talk about some of the players. We've already mentioned Tommy Cleary and the fantastic work that he did during the game. Another sort of unheralded player in our team, Sammy Gray, he had a very good game. Maybe a little bit sloppy early, but for the second week in a row, he got over 20 touches and really looked the part out there.
He's picking up the pace of AFL footy more and more, I think, because he's only played, 10 or 12 games, hasn't he? And most of those were sitting in a forward pocket. And I think you can see that he really thinks through what he's trying to do, and he gets a little bit of time both with his movement, and because he's a small guy, you can see guys are sort of, they think a moment before tackling him because they know they'll take him high if they tackle at the heights they're used to tackling at, those 188 and 190 centimetre midfielders. And he's quite clever in the way he wants to use the ball. He can thread a handball through traffic pretty well, and he spots up a target. I mean, even at that size playing SANFL footy, you've got to be a pretty decent player to do as well as he does. And he's brought it across there. I think he's much maligned, and I think a little bit unfairly. And I'm glad to see him doing reasonably well. I thought he was, out of all of those second-string midfielders that we're playing lately, he's done as well as anyone the last couple of weeks.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, for sure. He's definitely probably been the best of our depth players in the last couple of weeks. And it's really good to see him actually play a similar role at AFL level than what he plays at SANFL level. At times before, they've sort of put him as a forward pocket or a high half forward, and it's not his best position. His best position is actually in the middle as an inside player, and he's had a great opportunity to do that the last couple of weeks, and he's been able to bring some of that SANFL form up into the AFL and just perform his role, which is great. The problem is, though, he's a bloody small player, and you can't have a player like that as a mainstay in the AFL team unless they have some serious talent. So I'm not saying that he won't get there, but the odds are stacked against him, and there's a fair chance that he'll probably continue on being a depth player. But as far as depth players go, he's probably going to, at the very least, have a sort of Tom Logan-like career where he's there on the list. He's a good, solid depth player, and he's probably going to be able to at least eke out a decent AFL journey.
So where do you see him fitting? I mean, I spoke about it last week on the podcast where I mentioned that I feel the club are sort of deciding at the moment what to do with Sam Gray because he's out of contract at the end of the year. They're going to have to make a decision whether to either redraft him as a rookie or put him on the senior list. Where do you think he fits at the moment? Do you think he's going to get a senior contract, or do you think they'll look at redrafting, or maybe give it a miss altogether?
Well, he's eligible for third year rookie, I would have thought. That would be my preference.
Is there a third year rookie option?
There should be.
I thought there was.
Okay.
If the club and the player agree, unless that rule's changed, they keep changing rules. I can't keep up. But the last version I remember of it was that there was a third year rookie.
Okay.
I don't see much point to promoting him to the senior list just yet. If we do, we probably have to delist Paul Stewart to the rookie list. So, you're not really achieving any net gain there, in my opinion at least.
And you've got to promote Cracker yet as well.
Yeah, Cracker's definitely has to be promoted. So he would be one of the three list changes going to the draft. Because if we do trade in Dixon, we're toasting our first round pick, which will probably leave us with round 2 and 3, and you don't really want to go much further than that in the draft. So we might promote Sam Gray just to make our 3 changes, but I'm kind of hoping that we draft at least 2 this year.
I think we definitely need to draft at least 3, maybe even 4. Might be a little bit hard to see where they come from at the moment. I think maybe Mitchell might be in trouble. I think it's an absolute definite that we'll see Stewart delisted and then redrafted as a rookie, so he can pay out his contract. And obviously, I think Butcher might be gone. Where else we go from there? I mean, we might lose Young, we might lose Moore, we might lose O'Shea. I guess there's a few options there. I guess it depends about the Charlie Dixon thing as well, and whether we bring him in, and what we need to give up to get him as well. But yeah, I don't know. I think Sammy Gray probably deserves another year on the rookie list if there is a 3rd-year option. I think that's perfectly fair. I don't think he'll get a job on the senior list just at the moment, but I think another year on the rookie list is perfectly fair.
It seems to be the simplest option anyway. That he's shown a bit these last couple of weeks as a midfielder, and as a depth player hasn't let himself down, and has, I think, outperformed other higher draft picks that are also in the side. And but probably, as Forza was saying, that you've got the issue with his height and whether he's just got that spectacular bit of X factor that overcomes that to keep him in the side. I guess it swings and roundabouts a bit with the height of players in the AFL. I mean, if you're good enough, Caleb Daniels obviously got his way into the Bulldogs side, and he's shorter than Sam Gray, and there's a few little short blokes running around out there again these days. So it's almost the pure footballer has got a bit of a look in again. So hopefully he can keep sort of chipping away at it, I guess.
I thought some of the usual suspects played all right. Robbie Gray was pretty good.
Yeah.
And something that set the Facebook guys into a bit of a tiz. I had Brad Ebert and Matty Broadbent in my best players as well. I actually thought they were decent. I thought Brad Ebert played his best game in quite a long time, and Matty Broadbent's been pretty consistent since he got dropped earlier in the season.
I think in that defensive six, and I think I posted this a little while back, was that when you consider that Ken's game plan is probably built around really getting that rebound out of the back line, and virtually every one of our defenders this year has either had a setback or has lost form. You've had Jonas, who looks like he's been carrying an injury all year and lost form. With Carlisle, who started the year like a house on fire, got injured. When he came back, he could barely run, and then he got injured again. And Trengove missed the pre-season and has sort of worked into some form, then had a minor injury. Impey's been up and down. Pittard been Pittard, and Broady got dropped. And then since he's got dropped and come back, he's probably been one of the defenders who's really lifted his game at least to the level of last year, and maybe a bit beyond.
Yeah, I agree. I actually think Broadbent's back half of the season has been really, really good. I can definitely see him finishing high up in the best and fairest come the end of the year. And similarly with Brad, I think he's, he does a lot of things right. It's just at times his kicking, and he's one of the culprits that kicks it to no one. heading into the forward 15. He's done it a few times this year. I think I do agree with the general board consensus that he needs to go get his eyes checked at times, because he just seems to just be a little bit off. So he might have a bit of myopia happening there. He might just need a little adjustment, a la Daniel Pearce. And the sooner he does that,
There's someone he sees at centre half forward. I don't know who it is, but he picks him out, except that he's the only one that sees him.
It's the ghost of Bob McLean.
I agree with you, Macca. I thought he actually played pretty well. I mean, he's so strong overhead and he runs so hard and works so hard. And it's a bit like Tommy Logan a few years back when he was always pilloried for his mistakes. And usually the thing with Tommy was it was always one memorable mistake. And everyone remembered it. And then it was sort of a halo effect from there around his whole game. And I think Eberts suffers a bit from that as well, that the one clanger he has is usually so memorable, it's all people remember.
Yeah, that's right. On to some of the poor names. I mean, it seems to be the same names that bob up every second week. Matty Lobe was pretty disappointing. Do we think he might be playing injured? Because he was just a lame duck out there.
He's been a lame duck for most of the year, really. It's the Bulldogs game admittedly was probably the worst I've seen him. To only have 2 touches to when he was, 3/4 time. And there are several instances where you see a ball up in the centre square, he barely makes the first effort, and before you know it, 3 or 4 different things have happened involving the opposition ruckman, and there's another ball up, and then he's just catching up to get to the contest. So it's effectively we've been a man down in the middle on the weekend, and he's really out of sorts, and it's definitely not the Matthew Lobe that was playing last year. So he has to be carrying something. He absolutely has to be.
Yeah.
I mean, that second effort's just not there, is it? Or third effort where he would tap the ball and then hunt it straight away. As you said, Forza, it's just 3 or 4 things seem to happen before he gets involved. And
Well, that's right.
That certainly wasn't the case last year.
Well, he would tap it, and if the opposition gets it, he would tackle that player and bring it to ground and reset. But we've barely seen that at all this year, and it's just like by the time he gets to that first player, the ball's already moved on to 2 different players. So it's just, there must be a hip complaint or something, or maybe his quads never recovered from the start of the year, or his back, who knows? But he's just not the Matthew Lobe that we've come to know and love from 2014.
Yeah.
Look, I didn't realise he was a player.
He did have 6 tackles.
He did?
Yeah, he was our equal highest tackler on the weekend. But I do agree, it's certainly it seems that way at the ground, that that sort of second effort sort of isn't really there. He's just sort of tapping and that's about it. A couple of others, Cam O'Shea, Andrew Moore, I mean, they've had pretty good games in the last couple of weeks, but just seem to often revert back to, I don't know, a pretty poor level.
Yeah, I think Moore's probably, that game, that Bulldogs game is probably a career-killing game for him, because, when you get to the end of the game, the sting's out of the game, there's virtually no pressure, and you torch your captain. It just... with 28 seconds to go, it's just not a good look, and it just shows you where his headspace is at, and maybe he's at that point in his career where he just needs a change of scenery. He needs to go to a new club that's going to give him a big kick up the arse. He for whatever reason it's just not working for him at Port Adelaide, and the thing is he's the player we all want to love. He's got the size. He does have a decent skill set. He's a pretty good kick on goal. He's a tough in and under player, but it just doesn't come together for him. It really doesn't.
I mean, with Cam too, even playing in the SANFL early in the year, that the number of times that Macca, you would have seen this, that he was caught trying to take on 3 or 4 blokes to run the ball out of defence, as if it just didn't matter, if it happened. But he should be able to beat SANFL players. It was almost seemed to be his mindset, and then he'd be shocked when he was caught and pinged for holding the ball 30 metres out and dead in front. And so you sort of wonder where your headspace is at if you're doing that at that level when you should be doing the team first things and getting the team running from the back line.
Yeah. We've certainly seen the same sort of errors creep into his game at AFL level as well over the last few weeks. So, I don't know. Everyone knows I'm a massive Cam O'Shea fan. I wear his number on my Guernsey, but I don't know. It's just hard. He's just this sort of up and down thing. It's too emotional. I can't handle it.
I have to agree with you, Macca. I think his best and worst is on Grand Canyon proportions. It's just scary how bad he can be.
Yeah, I think
he's
Tribey
another guy
said
from that rebound defence that's just gone missing this year.
I think Tribey said on the podcast a few weeks back that his range from his best to the worst is the biggest of any player that we've ever had at AFL level, and you probably got to agree with that.
Yeah,
and I think the other one that disappointed me was Jakey Need. Without picking, but the thing I really stood out for me in that game was that he was so reactive to the ball coming out of the forward line that he doesn't chase a bloke to tackle them until the ball's gone to them. And it doesn't matter how much the opposition will telegraph that that's where the ball's going. He doesn't go until they've got it. He's quick, but he's not that quick. He gives everyone between 10 and 20 metre head start before he takes off after them. And they've got time to spot up a target upfield. And he's a fantastic tackler for a little bloke, and he's quick and he's courageous and he does all of that. But he just doesn't seem to read what's happening with the unfolding play. And I know it's unfair to always, compare to someone like a McLeod, but he was a guy who just read 3 moves ahead and knew where to be and where to cover the play. And we're really just asking this, in this case, just think 1 move ahead. Well, what's this guy going to do? You either run at him and try and smother his movement, but don't just stand there zoning off a piece of grass, or try and cover the bloke he's going to handball it to. So he's always there, yapping at their heels, but it's always just a bit too late. And there was really, I can't recall too much offensively from him either. And I don't know whether he's actually better off playing on a wing than as a small forward.
Yes, he needs a tough one, because for me, I absolutely love the guy. I think he's an absolute jet, but he does tend to fade out of the game quite a bit, probably more than he should. And yeah, I do agree with Ford that he does seem to just be chasing jumpers as opposed to really reading the play well. You almost want to have Calhoun's mind in Need's, at least he's reading a play in Need's body, because if he did that, Need would probably be a lot more prolific as a defensive player. But yeah, it's tough because I think Need's now shown that he does have enough tricks in the bag to be a small forward. He can crumb. He's shown this year that he does have a decent goal sense, where he didn't really show that last year. He sort of struggled a bit with his set shots and his snaps on goal, whereas this year he's been a lot more accurate. He's one of the few players that's probably improved in terms of kicking goals in that sense. But he's just as good on the wing. So for me, it's really, it just gives us more options. So I'm not sure this one's position is better than the other for him, but I'm not keen on having short guys on the wing, or not having a lot of short guys on the wing, especially when we have Sam Gray running around in the middle and Hoon coming out of defence, because then we just appear short.
Yeah. So what can we get out of the rest of this season?
Well, really, we absolutely have to debut one of our developing forwards. Absolutely. Either Harvey or Palmer or Howard. I think Palmer and Howard probably had the more impressive games on the weekend. Give one of them a go. Or even debut Frampton, give Lobie a rest, or put him out to pasture, put him into surgery or whatever, give Frampton a game. But we have to see one of these developing key position forwards or Frampton debut, I reckon.
there's certainly there would be nothing to lose by playing any of them now, given the season's shot. And I think you can still. I mean, I still want to see us win the last 4 games, but you can certainly, within that framework, give someone a shot and just see how they'll go. I think they've cycled through so many of the bottom end of the list anyway, and guys that they play okay. I mean, Colquhoun came on as a sub, and I mean he was okay, but he didn't really do anything amazing either. And you certainly wouldn't be losing anything if you dropped him out and played Mitch Harvey. What are you losing?
Yeah,
Well, yeah,
not much
right.
at all, I don't think. I mean, could we see a lot of changes this week? Because might as well talk about the SANFL. You know, they won by 59 points over North. They've moved into second on the ladder, or third on the ladder, I think. They won 15 goals, 16 to 7 goals, 5. Gus Monfries in his SANFL debut for the Maggies kicked 4 goals. And Cracker back in action kicked 3, and Jesse Palmer kicked 2 for the winners. Could we see, 6 or 7 changes this week? Because Kane Mitchell had 38 touches and 15 clearances in a massive game. Gus Monfries obviously was best on ground with 4 goals. Archie and Amon had a fair bit of it. Cracker kicked 3. Jesse Palmer's been in great form. Harvey probably deserves a bit of a shot, even though he's quiet on the weekend. I mean, we could really see a lot of changes this week. And maybe we should see a lot of changes this week.
Oh, we should see at least 5 without any doubt. We should see at least 5. You can already see Monfries and Cracker will probably come in. It'll be hard not to give Mitchell a game on the back of a 38 possession demolition job. Of course, that gives us the problem of having Sam Gray and Kane Mitchell in the same AFL team. But at this point, who cares? And there were so many poor players against the Dogs that. O'Shea, Need, Lobe, Hoon. I don't think he really did all that much when he came on as sub. I don't see him as a sub player. So, you can see, Moores was the other one that, even though his stats don't look too bad, if you just watched his game, he just didn't seem to be with it for the majority of the game. So you can easily see 5 changes without even having to think about it, really.
Yeah. I mean, Archie had 26 touches, 12 tackles, 6 clearances and a goal, so you would think he might be brought in for hopefully a full game.
Oh yeah, deserves it. Absolutely deserves it.
He's certainly had a solid year, and I think he's been a bit more than solid year at SANFL level. And when he's had his couple of chances as a sub, he showed quite a bit. And then when he did get his full game, just had a stinker, sadly. And although I think in that game they did the one thing that they shouldn't have done was started him in a forward pocket or a deep half forward flank. I'm not sure which one. And I remember we spoke to him at one of the sponsored dinner, I think, last year. And he said he really couldn't work out how to get into the game in that position, because when he was doing it in the reserves, I think they were playing, there was Butcher and Harvey and probably one other tall up there. And he said he spent most of his time trying to work out how to keep out of their way and couldn't find the footy. And then we have a league game and you've got Ryder and Schultz and Westhoff, and I could see, he's going to have the same problem as he had playing down in the SANFL, that he's not going to want to get in their way, so he's not going to find the ball. And sure enough, he didn't. And when he went on the ball, he just couldn't seem to get into it. And then he got dropped again. And I think it did knock his confidence around a bit. It took him a little bit of time back in the SANFL to start to find the footy again. It's a bit hard to judge SANFL form when you play North Adelaide, though, because they really suck. And I'd certainly bring Monfries and Cracker back, because I think they've proven AFL standard players. I mean, they will play. They have the skill set and the reading and the speed of the game to come up and play well. And then you're starting to pick and choose a bit among the others as to who you'd give a shot to. I mean, Darcy Byrne-Jones was pretty unlucky in that sense that he got taken over as a spare and he missed out against North, where he probably would have picked up 30 touches.
Well, they play Glenelg this week, who are second bottom, and look, hopefully we can get a win to look at really securing second spot on the ladder. Westies, who are currently in second, I mean, we're only 0.1% behind them. They play South, so hopefully South can do the job there. And we'll move into second and get the double chance, and hopefully we can do something in the finals.
Yeah, that should be a good game. And I think just while talking about that, probably mention the form of the academy side under Mark Clayton as well. I didn't follow them that closely last year, although I don't think they were exceptionally good. But this year they're in certainly in finals contention, as I recall, and it sounds like Mark's doing a terrific job with them. And maybe some of this talk about Buddha Hocking going back up into the assistant coaching rank might be an opportunity for Clayton to move up and coach the league side.
Yeah, well, they're currently second on the ladder in the reserves, so he has done a very good job there. I think they were really struggling at the start of the year from memory, and they must have won about 6 or 7 on the trot now. So they've done a great job.
Yeah, he's done a terrific job with them. And certainly it'd be great to see that the Maggies finish top 3. I think early in the year it didn't look great for them either in the league side. And they've strung it together, and as I've posted on the boards, I was at a Club 1870 event, and as Jacob Surgeon pointed out, that the average age of that side's probably around 20 and an average of 20 league games each. And even he said when they dropped Jonas back there, and I think they were expecting Monfries, although he didn't play that first week, he said it would have brought their average age up to about 21 and average games up to 30. So they've been a bit up and down, but I guess you sort of lose track of just how young the side is and how inexperienced. So they've done well this year. I think they've sort of recollected themselves a bit from last year. They lost some good players at the end of last year and have brought quite a few young players in, and maybe the side's not been that well balanced because there's a lot of young, tall players on the list now after last year's draft. But they've fitted in well, and they've done all right.
So what restrictions are we going to see placed on Woodville West Torrens next year? Because they're 3 games clear on top of the ladder in the league side. They're a massive 7 games clear and undefeated in the reserves, and they're also on top in the Macca's Cup as well. So, what restrictions are we going to see placed on that club next year?
The same ones they put on Centrals.
Are they going to lose their junior zone? We can only hope.
Yeah, I think there's what's the old saying about 2 sets of rules?
Before we go, just because I've just been keeping up with the forums while we've been online, Archie has signed a 1-year extension for 26.
Oh, that's fantastic news.
So I imagine
great news. Well done.
Work from the club, and he'll probably play this week, hopefully. So it's terrific news.
That really is great news. That's
fantastic. Well done. Well done for
that's a
paying
big
attention.
Positive.
Yeah, and yes, I think celebrate by giving him a game.
Absolutely. As the sub.
That's the sub.
Oh dear.
Wonderful. And look, as I mentioned at the start of the podcast, yeah, that's it. As I mentioned at the start of the podcast, Rick is probably not going to be able to be the co-host for the rest of the year. His work really has taken control a fair bit, so we're going to have Portia on as the co-host for the rest of the season. Hopefully we'll still be able to hear from Rick every now and then, and hopefully he might be back next year.
Yeah, well, it's good to hear his business is doing so well. But we'll miss him and his collection of squeaking toys and chairs.
Absolutely.
I think you just cover for him.
Can't the pair.
Can't bow.
Seabourn now caught. Port Adelaide are beginning to build. Foster's kick is through half forward. Knocked away by Hodges. On the run is Rowan Smith. Bends it to the goal square.